Howdy, folks. You know, I was going down to one of the towns here in North Carolina, and just driving down the road. You know, I'm a billboard fanatic, so I look at every single billboard that there is. And as I was going down the road, off of the beaten path, well, it wasn't even off the beaten path, off of one of the roads, and you have to excuse me because I can still not believe what I saw. Off one of the main roads, 4-lane roads, there was a real estate broker's ad that had cleavage and showing two round things. And it made me wonder. And I came back, and the first thing that I did was I wanted to have a conversation with you, because some of the times that I see people um, going with these kind of folks is just about almost every day. And it's not that I get upset about it, and it's not that I get mad about it or anything like that, but it made me question whether I was sane or if character still mattered. So I came back and I wrote a article about it. And I'm going to read you the article because I put all of my thoughts into this particular article about what I see on a regular basis. Right. And it doesn't matter if you're in real estate, you're an auctioneer, you're in Boy Scouts, you're in Girl Scouts. It doesn't matter if you're in a youth sport. Does your character still matter? I can tell you that your character don't matter to me if you are standing outside of a federal building protesting and trying to burn it down, or you're standing at my house firing Molotov cocktails at it. Your character, I know what your character is, and it matters to me because now I have to be defensive. But what do you buy when you see character? It's more than just being nicely dressed. I can tell you that because I've seen some pretty nicely dressed people be just horrible. As soon as they get done signing the contract, they turn around and they say, well, these people are jerks. These are the people who are paying your paycheck, and you're calling them jerks? Yes, there are some out there that are impossible to deal with. That's fine and dandy. But your job is to serve them appropriately, not sit there and say, well, they're jerks. I'm sorry if I come off a little talk showish, but you know, if the shoe fits. So here's the article I wrote. For generations, Americans were taught a simple principle. Character matters. Character counts. Character mattered in our leaders. Character mattered in our communities. Character mattered in our churches, schools, businesses, and our government. It was not considered optional. It was considered foundational. And we can say that the definition of a character has changed over the time to include the LGBTQ community. It has included Black Lives Matter. Any kind of, it includes our veterans. It includes homeless people. Character matters. Doesn't matter where. Today, however, one cannot help but wonder whether character still matters at all, or whether it only matters when it's politically or convenient, if it lines their pockets. The question's not directed at one political party or another, one religion or one institution or the other. Don't get me wrong. It's directed at everybody. In politics, Americans increasingly witness behavior that would once have ended careers being excused, defended, ignored because the individual happens to belong to the correct tribe. A perfect example is Plattner there. He has a Nazi tattoo. He's been, there's records of him beating women and I mean, just everything comes out. I don't believe it until I see the court cases and everything. But every day there's something coming out about this guy, but yet he's being excused, defended, and ignored because he belongs to that tribe. But if it's somebody else on the other tribe and they just said, "Lady, get out of my way," then that's a Nazi, sexist, whatever you want to call it. That's poor character. Rhetoric that dehumanizes opponents is dismissed as passion. Calls that appear to endorse violence are explained away as frustration. Symbols and language associated with hateful ideologies are tolerated when confronting them might create discomfort within one's own coalition. The result is a growing sense of, among ordinary citizens, that principles have become conditional. Character has become conditional. Let me give you an example. I didn't put this in the article, but let me give you an example. Most of your serial killers are charactered and principled individuals. They may be crazy, but they have character. Sociopaths usually have character. They have standards. So among this growing sense and conditionality of it all, our kids are growing up confused. Because now they're being told that if an act is wrong, as long as you belong to the tribe, it's okay. But when it should be is, if an act is wrong, it should be wrong regardless of who commits it. At one point in time in the United States, we had this thing called the Me Too movement. Well, one side was Me Too, Me Too, Me Too, and the other side, they fall silent with the Me Too, Me Too, Me Too when it's people in their tribe who are being accused. This character is what's driving today's politics. If harmful rhetoric is unacceptable, it should be unacceptable, whether it comes from the left or the right, or comes from your priest, your pastor, your neighbor, your police officers, your judges. I mean, it should be unacceptable, period. But in some cases, we've seen judges arrested because they know that they've done the wrong thing and they have done something that was criminal, and they're using their judicial immunity as a way to get out of jail free card. And we have seen that happen in more cases than not, and we've also seen police do the same. If advocating harm against political opponents is dangerous, it should be condemned no matter what. No matter who the beneficiary is. Should be condemned 100%. And if you have a party that does that, if you have a neighbor that does that, or if you're a part of a group that does that, when we get to the end of this, I'm going to talk to you about writing a brand. Yet increasingly, Americans observe different standards. Many people determine whether the offender is on their side only when to decide whether their behavior is acceptable. It's not principle, that's tribalism. The same problem exists far beyond politics. For decades, Christian churches have faced painful scandals involving leaders who stood behind pulpits preaching virtue, fidelity, honesty, and self-control, while privately engaging in conduct completely contradictory to the values they proclaimed, including pedophilia. Can't even get that out of my mouth. Some were discovered using illegal drugs. Others became involved in pornography or prostitution. Some abused positions of trust for personal gain, and other horrifying cases. Children were victimized by individuals who presented themselves as moral authorities. We see that today in school systems and just about all over the place. Most people will say, oh, it's the Catholic Church or it's the Boy Scouts. No, it's not. It's everywhere. You have librarians who have been caught molesting kids, county employees, police officers, teachers, your gym instructors, your tutors, everybody. Yet, they're worried about a small sliver, thinking that it must be true. It's not true. That's the kind of stuff that you feed yourself in order to not do something. The public outrage that follows such revelations is not merely about the conduct itself, but it's about the hypocrisy. Perfect example is, and people still sit there and tell me that it doesn't happen, but you have books about genderqueer coming out, the little blue boy, etc., 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 and how they come out in kindergarten through 5th grade, and they're supposed to be learning the basic fundamentals of how the world works, including numbers, letters, and whatnot. And when it gets down that young, I'm sorry, folks, but that's basically grooming them and normalizing them into a pattern that will set them up for abuse later, because they're going to say, oh, well, that's normal. And you could turn me off now if you want to. It doesn't matter to me. And the reason why it won't matter to me is because it's true. It's factually true. You can go do a Google search and you can go see genderqueer and you see where they put them in the libraries, and then you have teachers and administrations that defend those books on those shelves for those kids. It's not me saying this. It is a proven fact that people have gone and taken out entire departments of education by voting them out or getting them fired or finding out that they've been doing criminal activity behind the scenes to get rid of them. So I want you to understand, most people understand that human beings are imperfect, and what they struggle to accept is the sight that leaders demanding standards from others that they refuse to follow themselves, of course, makes them imperfect, but it's more of the rules are for thee and not for me, because I am higher up in the food chain. And it needs to be for everybody, period. The betrayal is not simply personal. It's not hypocrisy. It damages the confidence in the institutions. That's why there's such a big push to homeschool kids, is because of the garbage that's going on in the public schools. Taking your kids out and protesting ICE. Having them do all kinds of stuff. Forcing the flag down so they could put up a different flag. Those kind of things, it drives parents away. And parents are saying, well, we're being backed in a door because we have public schools and they're not teaching the kids anything. 55% can read, 29% can do math. Yet they have a 100% graduation rate. And most of them can't even screw in a light bulb. When a pastor preaches morality while living morale, let me say that again. When a pastor preaches morality while living immorally, trust suffers. We have churches around here where the pastor goes down on he gets on his high horse. I'm sorry to say, but there are people who date when they're 13, 14 years old because they're friends, and they go out and they do all this other stuff. Well, there's people who are getting thrown out of church because some asshole decides to go down into their Facebook profile and see where they dated somebody 20 years ago and got them fired because they dated somebody immorally. But yet the pastor does crack cocaine in order to keep his edge. When a politician campaigns on ethics while behaving unethically, trust suffers. We've seen this with Graham Plattner. He's sitting there saying that the other side is Nazi and authoritarian and this, that, and the other, and there's a list of charges that just keep piling up. Whether they're true or not, I have no idea, but you know what? I don't see any of the people he blames being a Nazi having a Nazi tattoo. And I'm sorry, but I'm an independent. But I call balls and strikes. Such as, you don't sit there with your uniform on and say that the other people are Nazis when you've got the logo on your... That's stupid. When an activist advocates violence, well, let me rephrase that because this was written incorrectly. When an activist advocates tolerance while displaying intolerance or violence, trust suffers. When a journalist demands transparency while withholding important facts, trust suffers. Perfect example, Leslie Stahl. Buying into the hype of the what we call the propagandists that said, about the laptop that she was telling that, well, there's no evidence. There was plenty of evidence. She chose to ignore it, or she chose to try to push that out, or try to make those inconvenient truths go out the door. When a leader speaks one way and lives another, trust suffers. The common thread is not ideology, it's integrity. I tell everybody I'm not perfect. I've done stupid shit. I've done stupid shit to people, and I've gone back and apologized. Some of them accept the apology, some others don't. I can't force them to take an apology. If they don't want to take it, that's fine. I don't have to see them again. But throughout history, societies have survived policy disagreements, economic downturns, military defeats, and cultural upheaval. But what they struggle to survive is the widespread belief that nobody means what they say anymore. And this is because we have these people who, the attorneys lie in court, get innocent people convicted of murder, and then on their deathbed they find out, oh, well, he spent 35 years in the for no reason. 35 years at $77,000 a year in missing income. That's a hard nut for me to swallow. You convict somebody falsely, the attorney should lose their license 100%. Fight to get rid of all of that evidence that lets them walk free, because we have Boy Scout troops that were questioned by the FBI because they were in Washington, D.C. during January 6th. How stupid is that? I digress. Citizens begin to disengage when they conclude that the standards are selectively enforced. And once you lose that, then it trickles over to the voters become cynical when they believe moral outrage is reserved only for political opponents. Just like the weaponization of the legal system back and forth. And now you've got one group who are already saying that they're going to do the same crap when they get in office. When does it stop? When does it stop? When does this lack of character and the lack of integrity that they keep pushing stop? Congregants become disillusioned when they discover that those preaching righteousness were hiding serious misconduct. Hint, Jimmy Swalwell. Not Swalwell. Eric Swalwell. He was on this high and mighty horse, but he wasn't a pastor. Jimmy Swaggart was. And there are people who will follow him right into the grave. Why? It's not because they are, have faith. It's because their faith is blind. They're believing the man. Well, he's not perfect. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but Jesus didn't tell you to stay around and get smacked again on the other side cheek, because, you either have the convictions to say, I'm not going to take part in somebody who is not part of the group, who is not going down the right path, or you don't. You're just as guilty as the person who has no character. And the public loses faith in institutions because they appear more interested in protecting reputations than pursuing truth. This is why we had the Boy Scout bankruptcies, because it's like, well, they're a good man, and this, that, and the other, so they covered it up. They kept covering it up. I mean, it's a fact. It's out there in the court papers. If I had to file bankruptcy, now that they're done and over with, guess what's happening? Now it's in your schools. It's in your libraries. It's in your county seats. It's your police departments. It's in your other youth groups, your Baptist churches, your Catholic churches, all of your other churches, your Protestant, your Presbyterian. Where does it end? If you find out that kids are being molested inside of your Presbyterian church, do you keep going to the church? That tells me you have no character. You have no standards. This is why character matters. People get mad at me because I go down the interstate and I act like I own the road that I'm under. I do not move for some idiot who wants to merge into my door. Why? Because they're probably going to wind up eating dirt when they hit my truck and then crap themselves and then drive off into the ditch. Character is standing up to the bully. Character is not saying, well, it's not happening here. Character is like, hey, you're my buddy, and you're talking to your son. Character is telling him and morally going through why we don't do that. Because it leads to, I mean, a lot of people get upset when you hear the FAFO argument all over the place. And in some cases, I don't think that that's a valid argument. But in other cases, if you're getting up there and you're smacking the hell out of somebody who's a federal law enforcement officer and he beats the living pus out of you, and then drags your butt into a police car, and then you go down and for 72 hours you get the opportunity to rethink what's going on. I'm not going to say it was deserved, but I think being arrested and taken down and being put in a tank for 72 hours is just. And then seeing the magistrate, and the magistrate may not care about you all that much. But there's one thing that you have to understand. All this rioting and protesting and hating ICE and hating this and hating the Catholic Church and Don Lemon going into a church and doing all this other stuff and saying that he's a journalist. Character is what remains when the cameras are absent. Microphones are turned off or muted and applause is unavailable. Most of the things that you see on national TV right now is for show. Every single news outlet. There's only about 3 that don't do this. They actually present the story and then they turn around and they present the other half. There's only about 3 of them. But I digress. The thing about it is that character is the willingness to apply the same standard to friends that one applies to their enemies. Do you think for 1 minute that I would beat the snot out of my best friend that I have known since we were 14? Well, if he did something wrong, yes. Because I hold him to a standard and he holds me to a similar standard. Do you think that I'm going to do that to a perfect stranger? Now, if he came into my house and he says, hey, it's me, do you think I'm going to have a different standard to when somebody breaks down my door and then comes in and tells me that I need to give them everything that I have or they're going to shoot me? Hell no. The reason why my friend comes in and he says, hey, it's me, is because he knows that by the time that door creaks open, there's already a thought flashing through my mind of who's going through that door. Character is the willingness to apply the same standard to friends that one applies to enemies. And if you don't think that I don't do it, if you don't think that I don't give people what they need, the whole purpose behind the things that I see is I size people up as to what they need. And then I kick them in a different direction, so they can build the character that they need, not the one that they want. Character is the willingness to apply the same standard and the same uncomfortableness to all situations. Character is the courage to condemn wrongdoing committed by one's own side. You think I care? Do you think I like either side? No. I think both of them are corrupt. But some people on one side will tell me that, oh, you're just a shill for them over there. And the other side will say, well, you're just a shill for them over there. And I'm like, no, both of you are morons. Is it important to understand that? Absolutely. And character is the courage to condemn anything that's going on by police, lawyers, school systems, you name it. It is that ability to condemn the wrongdoing, period. Character is the refusal to excuse dishonesty, corruption, cruelty, hypocrisy, merely because it advances a preferred cause. What does that mean? It means if your side wants to do a certain thing, and it's dishonest, and it's corrupt, it's cruel, and it goes against your own values, because it's, it's like, well, we're going to start being violent because we don't believe pets need, or dogs and cats need to be put down. You need to call that out, because it's going to lead to other people getting hurt over something mundanely stupid. There's a lot of people out there who will sit there and protest ICE and the immigration stuff, and they're only going off half-cocked. And the problem is they're going off half-cocked. Here's what the problem is. They're going off half-cocked with half a story. They're turning around, and guess what? They're going to get hurt themselves because of their ignorance. And it does not matter what it is. They're going to get hurt because of their ignorance. You can tell a kid not to jump off a swing set, but what? Well, the kid's going to do it anyway because he's being ignorant. He thinks he's Superman. Let him do it one time and let him sprain his ankle. See how fast he learns. It's the only way that they learn. The challenge facing America today is not fundamentally a political issue. It's a moral issue. We have become exceptionally skilled at identifying the faults with those we disagree. We find the faults, but we never find the common ground. We have become far less willing to confront those who are insane and who have the same faults among those we admire. In other words, if somebody on our side is doing something bad, we don't call them out for it. But man, let me tell you, if the other side's doing it, man, we're going to nail them to the cross. So the big question is, it's whether or not Democrats, Republicans, independents, unaffiliated, pastors, activists, journalists, scoutmasters, business leaders are capable of failure. Every human being is. The question is whether we still believe in the standards should apply equally. Do we still believe that integrity matters, or is it an ideology? Do we still believe truth matters, or is it tribal loyalty? And if you're not loyal to the tribe, do we still believe that character matters when it's inconvenient? Because if character matters only when your opponents fail, then character no longer matters at all. Have you ever watched Carolina Hurricanes and Las Vegas in Stanley Cup Finals? They will fight furiously against each other for a goal. But they will come together, sit down and have a beer and laugh about the game later. They won't go home, load up their car with a bunch of weapons and drive over to their house or drive to the next game and try to assassinate them. That's character. Sitting down, having a beer with your opponents. Or sitting down and just talking. And if that becomes our national standard, because we have a bunch of big mouth senators and representatives and I can tell that you're already yakking. You're already sitting there going, but what about your president? Well, he's not my president. He's everybody's president. What about your senator who's out there saying that the people that they want into this country pick cotton when cotton has been widely automated for the last 30 years? You want to talk about out of touch? Get somebody who's never seen a computer try to walk through a door that opens automatically. You want to scare the pants off them? Take somebody from 1948. And when they get here and then they see these self-checkouts, see how that works. If our national standard is to be bigoted, uncharismatic people, then, you know, if it becomes our national standard, no political victory, religious movement, social cause, or institutional reform will be enough to restore the trust that's been lost. And I hate to tell you that all of these people who fought in World War II and Vietnam against communists, that it was all for nothing. If we're going to treat people like crap versus understanding what they're doing, why they're pushing the way that they push, it's lost. The future depends on a society not merely for the ideas that embrace us, but also the character of the people who carry it out. And I would also say that it's not merely the ideas that they embrace, but it's also the ideas that they don't embrace. I don't have to embrace the LGBTQ community to respect them. And they don't have to respect the heterosexual white male community to respect them. It's when they demand respect and they don't give the respect back is when it becomes a problem. So I digress. The future of this society depends on not merely on the ideas it embraces, but the character of the people who are entrusted to carry it out. And if we're putting people in there that we can't trust, who have a bigger mouth than they have a brain, the question still remains, does character matter? Perfect example is Gavin Newsom. Blaming everything on everybody except his governorship. Blaming the world on high gas prices when he's the only state that has prices that are ridiculous. Sure, it's gone up. But you know what? It's not gone up above what historically has been because of any kind of action or inaction. But the thing about it is character still matter. If you have somebody who weaponizes the legal system for a political opponent, and then they get tagged with doing that, and they go to jail for it, and you sit there and say that they're innocent, but the person who is innocent is guilty, That's not character. So we have to ask ourselves, does character matter? Or have we decided that it only matters when somebody else falls short? Something that we can laugh at, something that we can make a TikTok video on. America, only you can make the decision. Have a great night.